campaign. I leave Mr. Obama aside, right, without criticizing him in particular, but that's the idea of all of these political campaigns. You put in this new fellow and things will change. And people have swallowed that stuff long enough. They realize it isn't true. It doesn't change. At that point, they're going to stop, number one, looking to Washington, begin to look at the other alternatives, which are the states. And I hope the second point is they're going to recognize that if change is going to occur, they have to make it occur. That is, the individual person has to make it occur. He has to become directly involved in this. Self-government is not a spectator sport. It's a contact sport. You have to get on the field, put on the uniform, and go out there and play the game. And if that means working with an alternative currency and learning how to use it as a businessman, you have to do it. If that means becoming part of a militia unit so that you can deal with whatever the local emergencies are, you have to do it. Nancy Pelosi is not going to come down from Washington and do this for you.
I am sovereign. I have a right to life. I have right to freedom of speech, and I know that I have these rights. I don't ask anybody for permission. I do not look to some higher authority to determine whether or not I have these rights.
God made the people made the states, and the states made the federal government, and that's the way the power flows.
The people in this country, the average citizen, the guy sitting in front of the television set after having dinner at night, they know something's wrong. They can feel it in their gut. They know that there's something just not right with the world. As Morpheus said in The Matrix, he said, you know, it's the splinter in the corner of your mind. There's something there. They just can't put their finger on it. It's our responsibility as citizens, as people who uphold the Constitution, to give them the option, to give them the ability to take the red pill and see how far the rabbit hole goes. And when they do, when you start making people awake and aware of what's going on, they become excited themselves and become true grassroots people themselves and want to spread the message. And I think that's happening to great effect right now.
When you evaluate the efforts and the results of the Patriot Uprising, the Tea Party movement, and you ask yourselves, have we made measurable progress in reasonable time? The answer to that is a resounding yes. Absolutely. We are making major progress. Politicians are scared like they've never been scared before. And that is exactly where we want them. We want politicians to be in a constant state of fear. Not physical fear, but fear of not being reelected. Fear of the people holding their feet to the fire. Fear of the people actually paying attention to and watching what they do. That's where we have the politicians right now.
The number one thing we can do to save our republic and restore our Constitution is to retake our Congress back for the people. Take it away from the establishment and the incumbents and give it back to the people.
How about local government?
Same thing, local government. We need to be electing local candidates that have a very clear and demonstrated understanding of their state constitutions, of the federal constitution. That way we know that those people are up to our business and not their own business.
But guess what? This is a government of the people.
As Tea Party protesters converged on the Capitol in Washington, D.C., stretching for several blocks from the West Lawn, hundreds of Rhode Islanders came out to the State House for a solidarity rally of their own. For those who couldn't make the national march, this was a chance to get up to the podium to voice their concerns over how the country is being run.
It is our responsibility to question our government and hold it accountable to us, the citizens.
The Tea Party, which stands for Taxed Enough Already, has been traveling across the country calling for smaller government and reduced taxes.
The political landscape in the United States today is backwards. You have the federal government declaring that it is the supreme arbiter of everything that happens in the 50 states, and that it removes the tax money from the states and then returns a small portion of it with strings attached. But if you study the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, how our nation is supposed to operate, you have this confederation of states that combine together to make decisions of national defense and monetary policy in the Congress. Instead, today, we have a private offshore banking cartel that seized control of the federal government and then used the federal government as a slave to carry out its unconstitutional aims upon the states. And this is clearly in the 10th and 9th Amendment, that all the powers not expressly delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people.
If we'll continue to support our sheriffs as they support us in defending us against tyrants from Washington, D.C., we can take our country back. It's taken courage to stand and keep your oath. Sheriffs, you took an oath to uphold and defend and obey the United States Constitution. When it matters most is now.
Politicians listen to one of two things: votes and money. And obviously people who are involved in this movement that are not a vested special interest and people that are, moneyed interests don't have a lot of money to buy off politicians. So what we've got to do is we've got to organize our vote. I've been working on multiple projects to do this, but at the end of the day, what we've got to do is we've got to educate people, get them awake and aware and informed.
Equating lawfulness and morality can be very dangerous. So I guess the time when you have to defend yourself from the government is when the law becomes lawless.
So what we're doing in Missouri is we're drawing the line in the sand, and we're saying this is our territory, that is your territory. The Constitution says that this is our right, and unless we take back what was already given to us, we're not going to get any respect from them.
So be encouraged, be motivated, be engaged, and just have a part of this, because 30 years from now, somebody's going to ask you what you did during the Patriot Uprising. They're going to ask you what you did during the years of 2010, 11, and 12, and it's my prayer that you'll be able to say that you were right in the middle of it and that you had a piece of this fight.
The question is, where should the American people draw their line in the sand? First of all, as a Texan, I would like to point out this is a reference to the Alamo. Colonel William Travis recognized that the outcome was hopeless, and he told the men at the Alamo that he could not, in good conscience, order them to stay and fight. And so he formally dismissed everybody and told them they were now free to leave. They no longer had any responsibility to stay and fight. But he took his saber and drew a line in the sand. And he indicated that regardless of what they did, he, William Travis, was going to stay at the Alamo and, even if necessary, single-handedly defend the fort. The line in the sand has come to be your final straw, the last outcome. Much like survival, individual survival, that is a personal issue. You know, when someone crawls through the window at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, you can say, "Get out of my house," and they can continue walking towards you, and you can say, "Stop, I'm armed," and they can continue walking towards you. You can pull the gun out of the holster and point it at them and say, "Stop or I'll shoot." And if the person continues towards you, at some point in time, you have to decide whether or not to pull the trigger. You know, whether that is actually necessary for you to save your own life. And that decision is clearly a personal decision. Everybody has a different breaking point. Everybody has a different level of tolerance to frustration and tyranny.
Instead of sitting down and saying, wait a minute, what does the Constitution tell us? Security. Where do we find that word? Well, it's the only place the word security appears in the Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. And the security of what? A police state? A free state. And the only other place where a word related to security is used is the word secure in the preamble, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So if you think that through, if you looked at the book of instructions, if you had the brain of a kindergarten student in terms of constitutional law, you'd look at this and say, aha, whatever kind of homeland security operation we want, its goal has got to be a free state and the blessings of liberty to our people. Oh, and by the way, the Constitution tells us what that is. It's called the well-regulated militia, and the reason we can be secure in knowing that the well-regulated militia will secure the security of a free state and the blessings of liberty is because it is composed of whom? The people themselves. Not an elite armed force, not a group of politicians, the people themselves. Now, I just did that in how long? 20 seconds? You didn't have to go to Harvard for 3 years of law school to figure that out. Right? It's right there on the face of the document.
It is my belief that liberty will be restored, that we will reestablish our constitutional republic in this country. And I sincerely hope that enough people have crossed that personal line in the sand where they will join forces with the rest of us so that a small number of us are not required to use force and use of arms.
By order of the City of Pittsburgh Chief Police, I hereby